But America does not stand still, and neither will I. So wherever and whenever I can take steps without legislation to expand opportunity for more American families, that's what I'm going to do.
Daniel Estulin joins us. He is a best-selling author and a Bilderberg sleuth, and I consider him a friend of mine. And he's written an excellent new book. We're not selling it, but we should be selling it at the InfoWars store. TransEvolution, The Coming Age of Human Destruction. Daniel Estulin, from the author of The True Story of the Bilderberg Group, and it's available from Trine Day. And is he able to stay with us till 40 after? I forgot to ask you guys that, or has he got to go at the bottom of the hour? Because I wanted to get that question into him earlier, last hour. Just ask him now before we go to him. Okay, great. Now, you know, the whole point here is that everything he's talked about, and the late Jim Tucker talked about, and then I've talked about, and Ron Paul's talked about, and that Vladimir Putin is talking about, it's bizarre, folks, that they've put top people over Russian state-run TV that basically talk about cancer, viruses, and vaccines, the plan to destroy the family, the New World Order. And the Russians are going with a truthful way to try to unify their country from outside attack and overthrow. And I don't like the fact that Putin's been cracking down on the press and people, but those are foreign-proven, Soros-run groups. So it's a serious situation. What do you do when you are being infiltrated by foreign powers? That's what the New World Order is. It's a corporate, above-the-law, breakaway civilization that wants to build its own global technocracy. And Daniel Estulin, I happen to know via some other connections, and Tucker before he died, and then some other folks. Then I brought it up to Estulin one time over the phone, and he said, well, yeah, that is one of my sources. That, I mean, he really does have these big sources. High-level Hollywood, high-level banking, high-level Bilderberg. And so that's why he's basically saying the same thing I say, because it's not like we're reading from the same sheet of music. It's not music we're looking at. It's a death warrant on humanity. We're looking from different perspectives at the same program being rolled out. And his book, I just began to read it this weekend. I'm almost done. I even learned something reading, and which I mean, I know a lot. And you know, just the way he puts things really gets people to think, and it's got a good cover to get the average folks thinking out there. And the reason I'm pitching it, even though I'm not selling it, is it is really, really important for people to understand the real mindset of who runs the planet. And so I want to get into his book first, but then the bottom of the hour, I want him to give us his take on what's happening geopolitically, the race from Spain to where he's at, from Greece to Japan to everywhere towards dictatorship and towards Goldman Sachs people being appointed as presidents. I mean, this is corporate world government. What he thinks about Soros trying to overthrow Ukraine because they wouldn't join the EU. Just simply amazing, the time in history we're entering and the fact that we've been so right. I wish we weren't right. Daniel, do you wake up a lot of times in the middle of the night like I do and just wish that we'd been wrong? I mean, it's not very satisfying to be so dead on, is it?
No, it's not. First of all, Alex, it's great to be back on your show. I certainly do consider you to be a very, very good friend of mine. Very proud of all the things that you and I have done together over the years, standing shoulder to shoulder, way back in the 2006 Bilderberg Conference, if you remember, and a few other events as well. So I'm very, very, very honored to be back on your show. You know, it's, as you said, you know, from Greece to Spain to the United States, Ukraine, Russia. We've seen this before. It's deja vu, you know, over and over and over again. And be it Soros in the Ukraine, or be it Soros in the Soviet Union or post-Soviet Union Russia, as they try to destroy Russia, you know, in the 1990s, trying to turn it into a well, it lost its statehood. It became a protectorate. And you had the Human Rights Watch in there. You had the George Soroses and the Harvard Endowment and the Carnegies and Goldman Sachs and the same players over and over again in all these same locations, always doing the same thing. And as some of my sources have said, when I asked them, I said, why do you guys always do the same thing over and over again? They said to me, because it works. Why would we change?
That's right. That's why they run the same attack profile. But I think that is their weakness, is that if we get the public to realize that, it's game over. And I think their old tricks are starting to fail.
You know, you have a very good point there, Alex. I listen to your show not every night, but certainly a lot of the times because, you know, your morning is our afternoon.
Yes, sir.
It's 7 o'clock, 7:15 in the afternoon here, PM. But, you know, back in 2005, when Jim Tucker, God bless his soul, and I were the only two journalists who covered the Rothenhagen-Bilderberg conference. And at that conference, I learned something which basically is the backbone to this new book, the Transhumanism, the Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. It was based on the discussion at that meeting, which later turned into the Strategic Trends Report 2007-2036, which at the time was a secret source document on the future of humanity. I got a hold of that in 2005. I was looking through it, and I said to myself, this isn't the future. This is the present. And the present that they were talking about back in 2005, which turned in 2007 into a report which is now available, you can download it for free on the internet, is the backbone of what we're seeing right now. You know, the age of transition to a global civilization. And this is exactly what we're seeing right now. And some of the terms from back then that I remember reading in the report, they were talking about flash mobs. What was a flash mob, I said to myself in 2005. I don't understand what it means. Well, we do now. You look at Turkey, you look at Kiev. One day, everything is fine. The next day, the city's being burned down by people we don't know where they came from. That's a flash mob. It was in the report, which is the backbone to my book, Transhumanism.
Amazing. And just put it all in scope, and then we'll drill down into to details. What is the master plan? If you say you had 4 minutes till break, 4 minutes to talk to 3 million people and encapsulate, if they succeed, what will be left and what the timescales are?
You know, it's interesting because, you know, the basic theory is this. If you think of a pyramidal structure, Alex, 6,000 years ago, who controlled knowledge? High priests. And they fed it to us one little droplet at a time. We, the great unwashed then or now, basically were fed this information just enough so we can do our daily, you know, chores and live day to day. Well, today, this pyramid is upside down pyramid because of the internet revolution. Anybody, anywhere in the world, be it you, I, somebody in Japan, or a Koya Indian sitting in a tree in the middle of an Amazon forest with a computer and access to internet, has access at his fingertips to the entire history of knowledge of mankind. So if you're the elite, that's bad news for them because suddenly the playing field, because of these technological advancements, has been evened on the one hand. But on the other hand, the elite said to themselves, we got to do something. And they're using the technology and the advancement to create a bigger and bigger and bigger gap, which we thought was actually being bridged. So, you know, if you spend trillions or quadrillions or gazillions of dollars in trying to, use the technology to get so far ahead of what we are right now, you can actually do this because they have the money. And, one of the things I'm talking about in this book, and it is, I think, absolutely revolutionary, is that our children, your children, my oldest daughter is 16, they're the last truly human generation of human beings on the planet. Her children and, her children's children are going to be transhumans, post-humans, man-machine, cyborgs, beings who are not totally human, humans who are not 100% beings. We're literally living at the cusp of the greatest change in the history of mankind. And it has nothing to do with a microchip in your hand. It is technology that is so advanced that people literally will be able to, in less than a generation, download their consciousness onto a computer and live forever. And that's what a transhumanist movement is all about. That's why my book is called TransEvolution, the Coming Age of Human Deconstruction.
And they're saying they're not going to give us free will. They're just going to do it. And it's so much more advanced than a chip. We carry a little computer that watches everything we do and tracks everything we do better than a supercomputer of 20 years ago. Now they have the quantum computers. And the key here, Daniel, is the prediction of the future, where Amazon can now ship you your order before you order it with 100% accuracy. This was always the key. The literal crystal ball, where they get enough data on the world and how things work, they can predict the future. And then with that data, they can manipulate the future. We're literally seeing godlike power being given to this degenerate elite.
It's very interesting, Alex. In the last 50 years, we've learned more than the entire history of mankind. And in the next 20, we'll have learned more than the last 50 and than all the history of mankind. And it's going to get to a point in about a generation and a half from now where we'll be doubling our knowledge every year. And that's something unfathomable for people because we don't even know what the future is going to look like. And that's one of the things about this book. You know, with Bilderberg, I answered a lot of the questions. But with this book, when you finish it, you have more questions than answers because it's the future, and we really don't know, even if we try to extrapolate it. There's just so many unknowns, but we certainly see where all of it is going.
That's right, and the elite may be good at watching us and manipulating us, but look at them themselves trying to dumb us down and control us. That shows they're not enlightened right there, and with this power, I don't know if we're going to make it out of this, Daniel.
Well, you know, they need to dumb us down. You know, the debasement of education is part of it because people who are aware of what's going on, people who understand history, who understand geography, who can add, who can subtract, who are interested and keen, and who realize that what separates us from animals is this divine spark of reason that we have, which allows us you know, to invent, to investigate, to discover.
To be empowered individuals with a spark of creativity to where we might have our own destiny instead of being their robot slaves. Daniel Estulin is an expert on this. He has the sources. So much of this is now out in the open. A big hope is within the establishment itself. They may, you know, need to basically get religion to understand this program will destroy them. But they say they're willing to do that if it allows them to have immortality. They believe they'll have immortality merging with her. To use that example with a popular film out there, a very powerful dystopic film I want to do a review of soon. And that's what we're facing here. This is the end of humanity. You can see this technology is dumbing us down. It's not empowering us overall because it's being deployed in a dehumanizing way. Daniel Estulin, this is the most powerful interview ever with you. You're really getting fiery here talking about to be or not to be. That is the question, and that spark of humanity. Well, I choose to be a human. I've seen all the disasters these people engage in. And what I'm saying is they've got a big plan. They are visionaries. They're in control. They steal our wealth. But I'm saying I don't like their dream, and I don't think their dream will succeed. But regardless, we need to educate the public about their nightmare they're trying to create. Daniel Estulin.
Absolutely, Alex. You know, God bless you. You know, what is absolutely, you know, is true is that the rise of the machine is here. And we're facing the time when the unconscious evolution period is almost finished. And we come to this new period when a controlled human evolution can and will happen, and the elite believe that it will happen. Technological progress will be concentrated on making a new body for the human being. The plan is to incrementally move the human mind into more disembodied and futuristic vehicles, not bodies, but vehicles. First, a humanoid robot controlled entirely by a human brain via brain-machine interface. Then a conscious human brain transplanted into a humanoid robot, then consciousness uploaded to a computer, and finally a hologram that contains a full conscious human mind. DARPA is funding dozens of human augmentation projects around the world to radically improve the performance, mental capacity, and resilience, first in soldiers, obviously, and then later on in humans. Everything from tapping the potential of our unconscious mind to augmented cognition and the creation of an uninhibited combat vehicles, whereby the military expects in the very near future for individual pilots to fly entire squadrons of robot planes. They're working on, you know, this mind-boggling experience such as cybernetic insects. And we see this in films like G.I. Joe. It's already there. It
is a total genetic rewrite of the planet, overthrowing the creation. And then you look at the byproduct, the fruits of all their programs, it's dehumanizing, it's not even empowering, and they're not being honest with the public. All the white papers you're mentioning that your book's based on, it's out there. It's on record, but people need to understand this is the end of humanity, and they are aggressively right now trying to destroy the family. Vladimir Putin speaks out against that, and he's a bad person.
You know, because of the synergy, Alex, the interplay of three great revolutions, the quantum, the computer and biotech revolutions. Again, we have learned so much in such a short period of time. The marvels of science like the internet, telecommunication satellites, laser beams, radio, television, microwave, structures of DNA molecules, biotechnology, all of it ultimately comes from quantum theory, and they dominate this. You know, we have the means through genetics, robotics, information technology, and nanotech to control matter and energy and life itself. We have never seen anything like this before, and it is raising profound questions about what it means to be human. And some of these questions, you know, we're seeing by public officials. Putin is talking about this, which is one of the reasons I'm mentioning this. It is being completely ignored in the United States. But this intense cross-pollination between the computer, biotech, and quantum revolutions will give us unprecedented power in the 21st century. And this is something that, as you said, people simply are unaware of.
That's right. And if I'm going to talk to you in the next long segment, this is intriguing, Daniel, about your ideas to try to turn this around, because I believe if we can have a revolution through your book and other systems of understanding about this, and have humans know that they've got to actively be part of this decision-making process, it could actually empower humanity with the nanotech, the rest of it, and we could literally be launching space fleets in just a few decades to colonize space in a way to empower humanity while maintaining our humanity, but also, if we choose, then having a separate, almost avatar that we test these systems with. And I believe that is the program that should be followed. But I want to talk about this on the other side with you. But I want to talk to him about free will, because that's what he's getting at here. This is freedom versus slavery. I'm not against humans developing and advancing. The problem is the spirit that animates, the ghost that animates the globalist machine is very anti-human, very predatory. Hey, let the troops use DU, let them die. Hey, let the Navy drive through the radiation and let the troops be in wheelchairs and catheterized and dying. So what? But then have football games, how much we love the troops. The globalists hate pure, good, loving people. They hate altruistic knights. More and more I realize that they are threatened by good people because they've cheated to get into control, and they can't help their psychopathic and sociopathic and other, you know, criminology designations. And it is a predatory group that's infested civilization since its beginnings. So I want to ask Daniel Estulin, we need to put out, because obviously no one's going to stop this march forward, and the church is so controlled, they just say, oh, the world's going to end next week, don't worry about it. But obviously that's not what's going on here. There's a great challenge coming. We need to be the salt of the earth, and I'm asking you what you think we should do to say, hey, there is advanced breakaway civilization. It's 30, 40 years ahead, the globalists say. A, how advanced are they in the breakaway civilization, in the corporate and government reservations? And B, what is an alternate vision where we can try to capture the imagination of the public about what's really happening, so they're not obsessed with Justin Bieber and they're obsessed more with giant space colony missions to the nearest star systems and habitable planets and the real trailblazer, master builder spirit of humanity?
These are very good questions, Alex. Very, very good questions. You can summarize it, I think, the following way. You know, you have to understand that the people who are our enemy are not the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds, but just the names. But it's a different movement. One of the things I talk about in the book is this transhumanist movement. We're taking as this vector for the future. Mega projects such as Russia 2045 movement, which they intend to create this new civilization aimed at future human development and evolution by integrating these new discoveries and developments from science, from physics, you know, energetics, aeronautics, bioengineering, nanotechnology, neurology, cybernetics, cognitive science, and on and so forth. And the Rockefellers of this world really have nothing to do or to say in this matter because they will have been dead by then. But the point is that the transhumanists, and I think the face of transhumanism is Ray Kurzweil, one of the greatest inventors of the 20th century. Unfortunately, a lot of the things that are being done by him right now have very little to do with helping humanity. He's the
head of Google development. He thinks he's going to become God.
That's right, exactly. Ray Kurzweil. Now, the whole idea behind this transhumanist movement, and if you want to know what it is, it's the symbol is H plus, human plus transhuman, is this ultra high-tech dream of computer scientists, philosophers, neuroscientists, and many others to use radical advances in technology to augment the human body, human mind, and ultimately the entire human experience. And these people wish to become post-human, which is someone who has been modified with performance-enhancing body, not drugs, body and brain augmentations to the point that they could no longer call themselves human, which is why, again, the Rockefellers have nothing to do with it.
And they describe us like bugs that, okay, you don't have to get augmented, but you'll be like a bug. We might step on you. And my issue is that Google and the rest of them at the head of this, the systems are all being designed to control. They claim on the surface it's a system to empower, but I don't see that at the heart of it.
No, you're absolutely right. You got it. You're absolutely right. You're one of the few people who said it exactly how it is. Look, neurochip interfaces, computer chips that connect directly to the brain are being developed right now. And the ultimate goal of the brain chip will be to increase intelligence thousands of times over, basically turning the human brain into the supercomputer. Lifelong emotional well-being is also a key concept, for the transhumanist movement. And they can achieve this through a recalibration of the pleasure centers in the brain. Pharmaceutical mood renders have been suggested.
Wireheads.
Exactly, which will be cleaner and safer than the mind-altering drugs. This is Huxley's 21st century vision of scientific dictatorship without tears. But behind all of this, no matter how you look at it, this technology is something that, we've talked about a lot before. It's the transhumanist movement. And the post-humanity, will be a new human which has been genetically engineered and brain chipped for total control, part man and part machine. This new man will no longer have a need of the sexual reproductive function.
That's right.
And if the least plan is to reduce the world's population, I can't think of a better way to do that. And not only that, but through synthetic biology, they're changing our DNA through genetically modified crop. They can literally create beings who are not human, that have never existed on the planet Earth. So why do they need men and women, as a couple? They don't need that anymore, which is why, as you said on your website yesterday, I think it was, talking about the Illuminati agenda at the last Grammy Awards. Well, this was exactly why they're pushing it. And this is one of the reasons why they hate people like Putin, who is absolutely against this kind of an agenda.
That's right. And here's the key. I want to ask you this point. They're toxifying the environment on purpose. Then the crisis comes. They use that to bring in Agenda 21 and neo-feudalism to shut people down for social control so we can then follow their scientific dictatorial edicts, always posing as the savior, and clearly destroying reproductive fertility, clearly wrecking humanity, where it's going to be impossible to live in the civilization unless you accept the transhumanism. It is simply amazing. This is beyond a H.P. Lovecraft book. It's beyond a Dracula. This is literally something out of the mind of the devil.
Well, Alex, these technologies, and again, you've talked about this, are not being developed to stop the terrorists, but rather to stop us, the people. And the laws to justify these technologies, they're not written on a whim. They're specifically designed to give the government carte blanche authority over the people during the chaos and confusion of the period we're in right now, which the elite call the age of transition to a planetary civilization. And I think people have to realize that the Bin Ladens and the Gaddafis are not the enemy. They never were the enemy. We, the people, are the enemy.
That's right. We are allowing ourselves to be seduced by this, as we cover in my film, Endgame, Blueprint for Global Enslavement, that you're in. And when that came out 8 years ago, it was a big hit because people thought it was science fiction. Now they're watching it. The film's more popular than it's ever been because now it almost all came true 8 years later.
I used to buy boxes of your film, Alex, and, go on trips because I travel a lot. Last year I did 240,000 kilometers, about 200,000 miles of traveling around the world. And I used to give your CDs of your films away to people, and they're saying, who is this Alex Jones character? I said, watch the film and you'll realize. And again, please understand, those who are watching and listening to us right now, These are not publicly funded projects for the betterment of humanity, but they're mostly secret experiments sanctioned in the name of defense, which when you put it on its head is crime prevention and extrapolated into the future is tailor-made to put down any rebellion by the 99% of the world's population destined to live in abject poverty and crime-infested megacities of the future, just as the Strategic Trends report talks about, which I read way, way, way back in 2005, almost 10 years ago, and so much, if not all of it, is, coming true. And
that's what's incredible. That's what's incredible. And people need to understand, they go, well, I don't care if the NSA watches me or whatever because I've done nothing wrong. Well, why don't you live in a glass house then? Why don't you, I'm tempted to dress up like an agent, in black, a man in black, and then go look in people's windows in broad daylight and see them call the police on me, and I'm going to say, well, what's wrong? The government does it just to illustrate with a camera crew, or to go up people on the street and say, do you mind if you wear clear raincoats just to make sure you're not carrying a weapon? And they'll go, well, of course I'm not going to do that. And go, well, wait, New York's already trying to make people only have clear bags. The point is we're being trained to be slaves, not even to be enslaved, but to stand down so we can be erased. Daniel, let me ask you this question. Do you think they're going to succeed? What does your gut tell you, and what is the time frame? Because
I don't know the time frame is, because, again, one of the things about this book, and it's a bit unnerving in the sense that it asks more questions than it answers, because, again, we're talking about the future. But I think, what is absolutely undeniable is this divine spark of reason, which makes us so different from anything else on this planet, can never be replicated, no matter whether your name is Ray Kurzweil, Jason Silva, or any one of these other characters, billionaires and zillionaires, who want to literally turn us into something we're not. Men-machine, future post-humans, beings who are not fully human.
Sure.
They will never be able to be able to replicate.
Exactly. He says from a storage thing full of his dad's papers, he's going to resurrect his father. There is no way Ray Kurzweil is going to resurrect his real father. He may have a computer that can fool him, and he thinks it's his father, and he says he doesn't believe in God yet. He's going to be the first God. I call it the God race, the race to be God, and it's as old as the Garden of Eden. It's as old as the Tower of Babel. And if we tried to build a new future out of love and compassion and transparency, we might destroy ourselves. But from this delusional perspective, my concern is these people they want to control us, but who controls them? Closing comments, and thank you so much for the time. I'm going to read the whole book. I want to get with your publisher and carry it as well in the InfoWars store. Just another amazing job, Daniel Estulin. What do you want to leave us with in 2 minutes?
I just want to go over some of the things that this report, the Strategic Trends 2007-2036, talked about. They're talking about by 2015, over 50% of the world's population will be living in urban rather than rural environments. In one generation, between 2007 and 36, the population will go from 7 to 10 billion people. They're talking in this report about lack of food, water, medicine, proper hygiene, education, and basic human necessities will spell collapse. And without mincing words, the report states explicitly a growing gap between majority and a small number of highly visible super rich is likely to pose an increasing threat to social order and stability. The result of the growing desperation on the part of humanity will result in civil war, intercommunal violence, insurgency, pervasive criminality, and widespread disorder. This is from 2005. Then they talk about that the countries, the nation states, because of the collapse of the global economy and a breakdown of the international political system, these are all terms from the report, will disappear and will be replaced by mega cities. And a mega city is defined in the report as a city of a base population minimum 20 million people. And then they say, because of the massive population displacement, cities will swell to unimaginable proportions. And as a result of that, mega cities themselves will collapse by the year 2045. And the effect of this collapse will be equivalent to state failure and to endemic failure of the entire human race.
And of course, that's the British Ministry of Defense report that you had already gotten a copy of in 2005 that came out, what, in The Guardian in 2007, or was it 8?
That's right. That's right, exactly. Well, we had in 2005, when we attended the Bilderberg conference with Jim, our sources gave us the report, not a complete report because it wasn't written at the time, but parts of the report. And we're seeing their agenda on right now. And again, transhumanism is changing the face of society, and people have to become aware that what's around us and what we're about to become in the very near future will be completely different from anything we've ever seen in the history of mankind.
That's right. Let me quantify this. They're scientists, they're doctors, they're technocrats. The whole world's a laboratory in their own words. They believe out of this epic struggle in a war against general humanity, in survival of the fittest, they will become gods. In the great cyber wars, the great technocrat wars, the biotech wars that are to come, they have the underground bases, the redoubts, the supercomputers, and that they will then rid the earth of the scourge of the proto-human as they see us, and they will become, I forget the exact term they use, this sentient, omnipresent, super sapien. And it is just totally delusional, and in the end of the day, we'll be lucky if they don't destroy the entire planet.
Give me 10 seconds. I'll just have to say this, Alex. You know, they feel that they have enough technology right now to face the gods and beat them at their own game. And they feel that they, today, are the gods.
That's right. They don't let people at Bilderberg look at any of them. And it just shows their total disconnect. I talked to so many waiters and waitresses as you have after Bilderberg, and they go, we're going to give you all the info. They were mean to us. They never gave us tips. They have no empathy, no humanity. They want everyone gone, so it's all theirs. Incredible book, incredible job. Daniel, you've got to come back more now that we've got you on Skype. Thank you so much, sir.
God bless you.
God bless you. Well, I salute Daniel Estulin. That is by far our best interview ever. Unbelievable. How do I even come up with a headline good enough to describe how epic these issues are? I mean, that's why I don't go out to Hollywood anymore when famous people invite me out there. Why do I care? That's why I don't care about being on red carpets and stuff. And what does it do? Only if I could get those people to go public to try to cause an awakening and an understanding. That's the only reason famous people are important.